fake pump for liquidity, false rally. So the episteme, the mode of thinking at the time still was, no, this rally is a fake rally, we're not going higher. I mean, how crazy and pathetic do you have to be? How ignorant do you have to be to actually believe that? Oh, that looks interesting. Next. Oh, wow, crazy. Next. I mean, how shallow and pathetic. This is why I think some people have become confused. They confuse long-term expectations with short-term expectations. Here's the video back in February of this year, and I showed this chart which indicated the third year in the presidential cycle, in other words, the year before the election, is usually very bullish. And if you think about it, guys, if I'm saying the odds are 50-50, that means I'm no longer bearish. I'm not bullish or bearish, I'm neutral on the market. Hey, this is Alessio, hope you're well. I thought about making this video for you, but to be honest with you, I actually did not want to make this video. I was debating in my mind whether I should actually create this video or not, but I decided finally, you know what, let's do it. And the reason why I'm making this video is there are some people out there who are not paying attention to what we're saying in our videos. By the way, let me just say this. I realize that you and most of our viewers here on our YouTube channel are fantastic people. I know you're sophisticated and intelligent people. However, there are some people out there on social media and on YouTube who basically, it seems to me, have the attention span of an 8-year-old or a mole. They don't watch all of our videos and they don't watch it in full. So they just watch a few seconds of it and they think they know everything we said in our videos and our analysis. And then they post their ignorant comments in our YouTube videos. By the way, let me just say this. I don't delete any negative comments on my videos because I want you to see for yourself the level of stupidity I have to deal with sometimes in these videos. But anyway, guys, so I want to cover for you very quickly what I've been saying on the chart of Bitcoin and on the stock market, again, briefly as I can in this video, and essentially set the record straight in what I've been saying for the last several months from the beginning of this year. Plus, also, I'm going to explain to you what I meant by these wave counts that you're seeing here, as well as these comments, this particular comments you're seeing here. So let's begin, first of all, with Bitcoin. So, as I'm sure you've seen, Bitcoin has hit our target of 40K, and as a matter of fact, it looks quite likely we may hit our next target at 47 to 50K in the next several weeks. So, when I posted my video, you may have seen this video recently. When I posted this video you're seeing here, Bitcoin smashes 40K, as predicted 9 months ago. Unfortunately, there were some ignorant comments by people who don't know any better, who said, what do you mean you predicted 40K 9 months ago? You've been bearish the whole time. Essentially, they're accusing me of having been bearish on Bitcoin for the whole year. And I want to show you this is completely wrong and incorrect. By the way, I think the confusion has been caused because recently I did an interview, as I'm sure you probably saw, with analyst Bob Prechter, who, by the way, is a great analyst. We should respect his opinion. What's happened is because of my interview with Bob Prechter, some people have essentially confused my views on Bitcoin, and I want to show you what I've actually been saying on Bitcoin. Let's go back, for example, to January of this year. In fact, here's a thumbnail, as you can see here. The thumbnail says, Bitcoin just triggered a new powerful signal not seen for 3 years. Okay, now what was I talking about? Let's go to the video. So let me just play for you a very short clip from this video. Here we go.
Pretty much brought about this crossover and indeed accelerated the crossover of...
By the way, what I'm showing you here in this video is a MACD crossover that occurred on Bitcoin back in January on the 2-week time frame. And here's what I'm talking about. Here's what I'm saying.
With the blue line now going above the red line. As you can see, that's a bullish crossover. I think the way things are looking right now, as long as Bitcoin stays above the support level, then it could result in significant bullishness and indeed potential uptrend for Bitcoin going to the rest of 2023. So it's a very good sign. I think it's a very positive sign, probably one of the first positive signs we've seen on Bitcoin for a very long time.
All right, I'm going to stop it right there. Essentially, that was back in January, as you heard. So I've been bullish on Bitcoin as far back as the start of this year, while most analysts, by the way, at the same time were bearish. I remember when I posted that video, people were in complete disbelief, saying, no, we're going to crash and go below 10K. So way back at the start of this year, I posted that video expressing my bullish views. And by the way, I remained consistently bullish on Bitcoin from January onwards. Even when Bitcoin had this drop here in March of this year, I still remain bullish on Bitcoin. Now, obviously, I received some comments on those videos. First of all, let me say the majority of the comments I get from you guys is fantastic. They're great. So I want to thank you very much indeed for your brilliant comments on my videos. However, every now and then you get some weird comments. So let me show you. This is what some of the comments were at the time, back in May, I think this was, in May of this year. By the way, let me just say this. These comments that I'm going to read here in this particular video were not from bad people. They were intelligent people. I just happen to disagree with them. So let me just play for the video very quickly.
Comment here. Bitcoin is in a retrace and will come back to lows and probably break them. So rather a pessimistic and negative comment. In other words, this comment here is disagreeing with my bullish analysis of Bitcoin. Here's another one for you. Completely disagree. We're going to see the kiss of death this year. Here's another one. The epic crash is weeks away. Sorry guys and Alessio.
Alright guys, again, those comments were from intelligent people, from good people. I just happened to disagree with them, that's all. But the reason I read those comments was because to show you the sentiment at the time. So here's what I said later in that video. And by the way, this is May of this year.
To me, these are the kind of comments you might get or usually get at the beginning of another bull market, which I think is very likely now, or at the end of a previous bear market. So in my view, these comments, these rather bearish, negative comments, very pessimistic comments, the episteme that the price cannot go back up, can only go lower, these kind of comments you typically see at the beginning of another or a new bull market. So that's my belief. I think that if it's correct that we're in the beginning of another major bull market on Bitcoin, which I think is quite likely as long as Bitcoin stays above 20K, then I think these kind of comments will soon come to an end. I think perhaps in the next few months. I think if Bitcoin continues to rally higher in the next several months, which I think is quite likely, then I think you're going to see the episteme, the system of thinking change from one of cycles to mechanism. Again, fundamentals, schmundamentals pushing price up. And you're going to see comments that are the opposite of what I just showed you in this video. You're going to see comments saying that Bitcoin can never go back down again. It can only go up and a lot higher. So that episteme of over bullishness, or indeed, I should say, of mechanism has not yet happened. But I think we're going to come to it in the next several months of this year.
All right, guys, as you heard me say there in that video, the episteme, the mode of thinking at the time, back in May of this year, was complete disbelief. Disbelief in Bitcoin, disbelief in the idea that Bitcoin can go any higher. Again, the ideas and the sentiment was that Bitcoin's going to crash and go much lower again. And as you saw, I disagreed with that point of view. Over the summer period, Bitcoin formed, as you can see here on this chart, Bitcoin formed this very interesting ABC pattern, which, by the way, I said at the time this was an ABC pattern. All right, so it's not just in hindsight. Even back then, I said this is very likely an ABC formation. Okay, a corrective formation before we see higher levels. In fact, I'll put a video clip where you can actually see what I said back in October. My view is that this is the next likely wave 3, and then this wave 3 could extend much higher. If that's correct, if this is the correct wave count, which I think it is, then wave 3 could extend much higher, in my view, towards 40K, 50K. All right, guys, as you heard there in that video from October, I was looking for higher levels because essentially we had a breakout and it looked like Bitcoin was on its way to our 40K and eventually 50K targets. Here's what I said back in the video with Alexander Overgag.
Point of view of risk, I'm remaining bullish, and I think we're going to see much higher levels towards at least 32K and 40K and probably 50K. But I would need Bitcoin to stay above 26K and 25K. But generally, I would agree with you, Alexandra. I think that we have more upside to go.
Let me just show you this. These were the comments I got in that interview video. So that interview video you just saw with Alexander Overgag, these are some of the comments that I got. There were a lot of bearish comments on my video. In fact, the majority of the comments were in complete disbelief and essentially disagreeing with me. Here are some of them, as you can see here. This is why more likely Bitcoin going down first. Topping this week, no doubt. Selling in the news. Gonna happen, down we go. Fake pump for liquidity. False rally. All right, guys. So again, the episteme, the mode of thinking at the time still was, no, this rally is a fake rally. We're not going higher. And by the way, notice, guys, the very same people who were criticizing me and attacking me and saying, no, Bitcoin is going down, it's going to crash, are now coming back and saying to me that I have been the bearish one, that I've been wrong for being bearish all this time. Complete nonsense. I'm sorry, guys, but it seems to me that there's a lot of people out there who do not pay attention to what we say in any of our videos. By the way, I don't know if you know this, but I'm sure you probably do, that a lot of people today do not read books anymore. I mean, gone are the days where people actually sat down and read books. Today, people are either just binge watching on Netflix or, much worse, they're going on TikTok, and the attention span, by the way, guys, the attention span of someone on TikTok, do you know how long it is? It's 10 seconds. This is someone on TikTok. Oh, that looks interesting. Next. Oh, that's interesting. That's good. Next. Oh, wow, crazy. Next. By the way, on YouTube Shorts, the attention span is about 30 seconds. And I think someone told me on Tinder it's about 1 second. I mean, how shallow and pathetic. The bottom line is, guys, as I've showed you, I've remained resolutely bullish for the last several months going to January of this year. Now, some people, I think, got confused in my video interview with Bob Prechter. Because in that interview, we talked about two different wave counts on Bitcoin. One bearish one and one bullish one. And you may recall, I asked Bob Prechter about this bullish wave count towards all-time highs. He disagreed with this point of view. He disagreed with this wave count. Now, I don't want to go into that because I'm sure you've seen the video. If you haven't, go ahead and watch the video. And his view was that Bitcoin is likely topped, and he's expecting a drop or a crash next year in 2024. In fact, let me show you. Here's that video, and you'll see on the thumbnail and even on the title, you see it says in 2024, not this year in 2023. And it seems some people did not watch the whole video, probably just watched a few seconds of it or a few minutes of it, and they thought that Bob was saying that Bitcoin is going to crash below 15K or 10K this year by the end of December. I mean, how crazy and pathetic do you have to be? How ignorant do you have to be to actually believe that? But that was not what Bob was saying at all. That was not what I was saying either. What Bob and I were saying in that particular video was that it looked quite likely that Bitcoin had topped back in 2021. Now, even if Bitcoin has topped in 2021, and my view was that Bob had a good point, but even if we were to agree with Bob Prechter that Bitcoin has topped in 2021, that does not mean that it's going to crash immediately. In fact, I was still expecting Bitcoin to rally higher and reach our next levels of 40K and 50K. This is why I think some people have become confused. They confuse long-term expectations with short-term expectations. So you can have a long-term expectation for Bitcoin to not reach all-time highs and in fact to roll over and go much lower next year in 2024, but still expect this year or at least the next few months for Bitcoin to reach higher levels like 40K and 50K. So I think that's what's happened, a misunderstanding. By the way, let me just say this. I honestly don't know which particular wave count at the moment is likely for Bitcoin. Because for me at the moment, I don't think we have enough information to make a decision as to whether Bitcoin is topped or not. That's my personal perspective. So at the moment here, I would say that I'm not yet decided as to whether Bitcoin is going to go in this wave count to all-time highs or in this wave count that's going to roll over next year in 2024 and make new lows. So I'm still not decided on that because I need to see confirmation by what happens to Bitcoin in the next several weeks and months, especially at resistance levels near 47 to 50K. So I'm going to keep an open mind in Bitcoin until we get more information from the charts and the price action. Let's go now to the chart of the stock market. Now, as I'm sure you know, way back from the beginning of this year, I've remained bullish on the stock market. In fact, I disagreed with many analysts out there that were calling for a crash in the stock market back in, I think it was January, February this year. And here's the video thumbnail. You can see this was back in February, and I said, be prepared. The stock markets could repeat this pattern again in 2023. So what was this pattern that I was talking about? So here's the video back in February of this year. I was doing an interview with Charlie Burton, and I showed this chart which indicated the third year in the presidential cycle, in other words, the year before the election, is usually very bullish. And as you can see, I showed this data here with a potential 16.3% average returns in the third year. And let me play for you what I said in that video. Here we go. And according to data from Jason Geppert of Sentiment Trader, this is very interesting. Guess when the sweet spot occurs? The sweet spot for the presidential cycle or the third year of the presidential cycle, the pre-election year, is between January to July. So according to data from Jason Geppert, he says that during January to July, you see the greatest strength. He says during this seasonal windows, the NASDAQ and the X rose all 9 times. So if the cycle repeats itself, and it looks likely it might this year in 2023, we could be looking at a very strong period this year in 2023 based on the seasonal cycle, based on the pre-election cycle of the stock market, and also between January to July. So as you saw in that video clip, that was back in February, and I was expecting, as I said in that video, for much higher levels up to July. And in fact, in many of my member videos, I called for targets of 4456, and we reached all of our targets. And by the way, here's what happened. Back in late July and August, I began to warn of a potential correction. So as we were reaching these levels, just near 4,500, 4,600, I began to warn of a correction. Here's the video thumbnail. Dumb money sentiment on stock market reaches a new extreme. And here's that video. I paused it for you so you can see it. So I showed this chart, you may recall, back in August, I think it was 1st of August. And I said, look, the stock market, the S&P, has reached an extreme bullish sentiment among dumb money. And every time this has happened in the past, we've had a correction. So that was back in late July, early August. I showed this and I said, look, in previous times, whenever we've had such extreme readings, we've had a correction or a pullback. Now, I will say this, the stock market had a much more deeper pullback and correction than I expected. So I was not 100% correct about the depth of that pullback and correction. Nevertheless, though, we did warn that a likely pullback and correction is coming before it even started. Now, it is true that back in October, in late October, I became quite bearish in the stock market because the market, essentially the S&P, broke down below some key support levels here. Now, I will admit, I was wrong to be bearish back then, but we also need to remember that the markets are chaotic, they're uncertain and unpredictable. So when we're dealing with a non-linear, unpredictable market, these kind of things happen when we do get false signals from time to time. But let me also say this. It seems some people thought, mistakenly, that I've been bearish the whole way through. So when I read some of the comments, some people were saying, oh, you've been bearish the whole way through up to here. Guys, that is simply not true. In fact, as you may recall, I changed my mind on the market right about here. So I went from bearish to neutral. Here's the video thumbnail from the 6th of November. Did this cancel the bear market? And here's what I said in that video. Again, remember, this is about a month ago on the 6th of November before the continuation of the rally.
Guys, also let me say that from a probability perspective, I would say that right now, the situation is a 50-50 coin toss between bull market and bear market. In my personal perspective, it may not be in Manuel's perspective, but for me, I would say the outcome, whether we're going to go back into a bull market or a bear market, depending on which level it breaks, whether resistance, the level I mentioned earlier, or support, like the one Manuel mentioned, I would say that the odds right now are about 50%, 50-50. And I know many of you who are watching this video hate that because nobody likes that because, oh, no, tell me which one is more likely. Unfortunately, guys, there are situations when I can't do that. Sometimes the analyst has to just say, look, we don't have a high probability. But I will say this, the only reason I'm saying that is because we don't have enough information.
All right, guys, as you heard in that video from the 6th of November, again, this was posted right about here when I changed my mind at I would say right about before we took out the October highs. So I said, look, the odds have turned 50-50, 50%. And if you think about it, guys, if I'm saying the odds are 50-50, that means I'm no longer bearish. I'm not bullish or bearish. I'm neutral on the market. And I remained neutral in the market because I needed confirmation. So until we get confirmation, I simply did not have a high probability. Now, let me say this. In majority of my videos, I often say which path has a higher probability. So practically in most of my videos, in all my videos, I say which path or wave count has a higher probability and which one has a lower probability. So which one I expect and which one I don't expect. But there are some situations when the odds are 50%, 50-50, like I mentioned. And in those situations, I have to wait for more information from the market. And by the way, as I explained to you in my video about a week or so ago, we still don't have confirmation. As I'm making this video, the stock market has not taken out yet the July highs. Now, if the market succeeds in taking out and closing above the July highs, then the odds could increase that the market could potentially reach all-time highs by next year, in the next several months, provided the stock market remains above support, as long as it stays above support, and as long as the pullback is corrective. So that has not happened yet, and we still do not have confirmation on the markets. On the other hand, if the market were to break support, key support, that would obviously be very dangerous for the market. Let's see what happens. All right, guys, I want to thank you very much for being patient and watching this video. There's some more interesting videos I'm going to post very soon, which I think you'll like. And by the way, guys, make sure you also check out our member videos for more details on the stock markets, Bitcoin, and gold. Thank you very much indeed. Bye for now.